Hi, welcome to the latest episode of the Wellbeing Show. I've got Graham Clarke with me, who's the CEO of a men's grooming service called Murdock, which he'll tell us about. And I need a bit of, by the looks of me, so I might get some professional advice from him while I'm at it. I mean, we're talking about mental health, men's grooming, but also this absolutely spot-on idea of Graham has trained all his barbers, I think he calls them, and other people
Yeah.
in being mental health first aiders. So being able to signpost guys who they think are struggling with mental health issues to services. And which I just think is phenomenal, to be honest. It's absolutely spot on. But we'll get into that in a minute. If you've got any questions, remember the show is going out pre-recorded, but do drop me a message on WhatsApp 07 506 319 745. If you've got any messages or questions for Graham, then just pass them on to me and I'll pass them on to him. We'll put the Murdock website and any contact details that Graham wants underneath the show. And so with that, that's the intro finished. So hi Graham, how you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, Noel. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and everything that you do and that you're doing as well for men's mental health. It's something that as a business we're really aligned with, but also I'm personally connected with as well. It has a huge place in my heart. So thank you for that.
Oh no, it's great to have you on. It's also, I think, really crucial right now, and this is not about party politics, but this is just about the messages that have been coming out at this particular point in the UK around work shy and sick note culture. It's really good to have a fellow business entrepreneur on saying that's nonsense. We need to spot mental health struggles as soon as possible and provide appropriate support. And if that includes a sick note from your GP, then it includes a sick note from your GP.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's crucial
Yeah.
right now. I'm reading daily that there is an epidemic, with regards to the mental health of the nation.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be anywhere near enough services or support,
Yeah.
and we're still stuck in the loop within men's mental health, in this whole kind of, they'll be okay because they're men. They can handle it.
Absolutely.
They're boys. They're okay. They're all right. They're tough enough.
Yeah.
And that is why part of what we do. I mean, we do barbering. That's the one thing we do.
Yeah.
We have great product along with it, but also part of what we do is that training, as you've mentioned, for all of our barbers, so that if we spot any of the signs that we've been trained in, we can direct a conversation, down to signposting to the services that are available.
But it is important to note that it's a barbering service as well as a men's grooming service. And so you're aimed at men. And I think it's really important for us to hold on to that and hold on to it's a men's service. And because I've been in this game 30 years now as a therapist, and I started off as a men's worker. That's what I started in Scotland, of all places. And I know your partner comes from Scotland.
Indeed, yeah.
Which has a very interesting version of maleness. That's what I did historically. Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so trying to work with guys, getting them into services. And what I noted then, and what is still the case, is that there is a myth about men won't talk about things, but that's not true. Men will talk about things if you meet men where they are.
Yeah.
The idea of having psychologically informed barbering services is extraordinarily brilliant as far as I'm concerned. And I can't big you up enough for that genius, because we need services where men are going. We don't need services where men are not going.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
absolutely. Yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
where it needs to be. And
Yeah.
it reminds me of, it was, I think the building company Tarmac had a big sort of influence on the Battersea Park development, the Battersea Power Station development.
Yeah, yeah.
classic thing in construction, lots of men, lots of accidents, but also lots of suicides. And that's the story of men and mental health is 75% of deaths from suicide are men.
Yeah.
Worldwide, going up, not going down. Suicide figures going up, not going down. So more men killing themselves now than ever before, right? Fact.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really important to know. And then in this building site, where you think men are definitely not going to talk about stuff, they just did a very simple project, which was they had a room set aside, which was called the talking room.
Yeah.
You went there, you were going to talk, and somebody sat there and talked, and again, mental health first aid. The suicide rates on that project through that company dropped like that. Isn't that extraordinary?
That's all that and it's something as in maybe your listeners or viewers will just think, well, that's really simple, and it is literally simple as that.
It really is. Yeah.
You get a guy, and we do actually service females as well. I might add that. So we do, females with short hair, we do. But we get a client in the chair, and that everything that we do in the barbering industry, also reflective in in other parts of the personal care industry or service industry, also that is so connective. It's so connective, and even though you may be in a row of chairs in one of our stores, you instantly get that connection with your client, and you do open up. I did the same years ago.
Let me suggest something here as well, and I don't have any evidence for it, but I'm guessing that any women that are listening to this going, wow, this is an amazing project, because a lot of women understand that a lot of the men in their lives are struggling and not talking about it. They're going to be more attracted to your services because of the work that you're doing and because you're creating a safe environment, a safe space for this to happen. That's my guess. My guess is also there's quite a few women listening to this going, right, I'm dragging Johnny, my mate, my husband, to the barber shop immediately. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I think so. It's like,
I mean, yes.
Do you know what I mean? I've got a feeling about that. I might be wrong.
Everyone just feel free. Feel free.
What I'm saying is everybody get there. Forget the other places. Just go to this place. They're amazing. Right. So, but Graham, tell me about you. I mean, sort of you. How you? Tell me about you. Where did you grow up?
Wow. Okay, so I was born in Guildford in Surrey. We lived in a place called Farncombe, and then for a whole range of reasons, we moved from deepest, darkest Surrey to deepest, darkest South London and moved to Mitcham, where I went to. I think at the time it was one.
I was spotting a London accent there more than a Surrey.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. I mean, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but yeah,
and a bit of South London as well. I'm a bit suspicious of South London. I'm up in Hackney. Do you know what I mean? And we're civilized up here, but I'm a bit iffy about you lot.
Listen. It's one of the best places. Let me tell you, it's one of the most diverse, colourful, best places to live. Let me tell you. I'm now back in Surrey, right? You can see the beautiful greenery around me. So I'm back in Surrey.
Well, you can take the boy out of South London, but you can't take the South London out of the boy, right?
That's something that my partner says about me regularly.
I'm sure. Like,
Yeah.
You don't scratch much, do you?
So I was so grew up then in really my life is South London, right? So grew up in deepest, darkest South London, literally darkest South London, I might add, and it was an interesting start in life. I am a child of two. I have a slightly younger sister. And I knew from the very beginning that there was something quite different about me. I was born in 1970, and we didn't have very many examples of diversity in the world in 1970. It wasn't allowed. But I knew something was going on. However, because of the family views that I very quickly picked up on gay life, shall we call it? We're going to call it gay life, just for this part of the conversation. I knew that it was wrong, or I was led to believe it was wrong, and not the right direction for me to go in. So I hid my truth.
I just want to stay with that for a moment, because there is, in certain parts of the world now, I would say, there is a regressive movement.
Yeah.
And particularly within my profession, there are people who believe in this thing called conversion therapy and all this sort of nonsense, which is horrific, absolutely horrific, and should be banned, to be honest. Anyway, don't get me on that soapbox. Now, what's interesting is how sort of certain groups and people with certain types of thought patterns imagine that if you have a permissive society, that creates being gay or lesbian, etc., right? Now, I think it's really important that what you're telling us here is that you knew who you were in a non-permissive society, not just a non-permissive that would have been unpleasant to you, but actually threatening.
Very, very threatening. Yeah, super threatening. I was beaten to the point of bruised and battered when I went during school. I was also, there was also some potential kind of passive conversion going on at home as well, so there was a lot happening that, I really did know very young, as soon as things started to happen with my body, there was a definite path where I think somewhere deep inside, maybe here in head and heart, I really needed to go. But also there was a lot of inbuilt and taught fear around actually being who I am now, if you like. And I went 44 years of my life in the wardrobe, as I call it, because we don't really use the term closet here in the UK. So and
have closets. That's an American thing.
Is very much so.
We have wardrobes. That's Brits. If you're lucky, you have a wardrobe, and that's it.
I've been in the wardrobe for a few years. Yeah, so it sounds weird though. So so I did, and to the point where I met a wonderful woman, absolutely wonderful woman, and I might add, we fell in love.
Yeah,
we had a daughter. Don't ask me how that happened, but it happened. And, it wasn't until I was 44 that we made the decision, and, the daughter had left at that point. And it was time to, figure it out and live my truth. So, I did, that was when it happened. So I've been 10 years this year living as me, really, So, a fifth of my life.
Yeah. I mean, it is extraordinary thing that's a story I'm so familiar with a lot of friends, and who because of social pressures and political pressures and business pressures and family pressures, remained in denial sometimes, but also with huge psychological cost. The denial, the maintenance of the denial, and the sense of wrongness within oneself, the cost that and some just lived double lives and were married to women who knew they were gay, were fine with that, and they went off and they had gay relationships, and to the rest of the world they were married. Quite a few of my friends who were in theatre and stuff like that, who were Catholic and things like that, that they maintained these heteronormative fronts.
Yeah. And let me tell you, having experienced it, it's exhausting. And I lost a very, very dear friend of mine because of the exhaustion, and something that I experienced as well, because there is an element of guilt around it as well when you then when you then come out of the wardrobe, right? So when you then come out and you speak your truth, there is an element of guilt about the folk that you have affected, you know, by that. My wife, my daughter, our close friends, you know, who sadly, you know, I don't really spend time with anymore, just because, you know. So it's that. My you know, my dear friend Richard, you know, and unfortunately I wasn't there for him. He, you know, he took his own life, and the upsetting thing was that he was living his truth at the time, but it took so long, he was so bitterly lonely, and no one really recognized the signs in time, and that's why I'm talking to you today.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. So when you came out, how did your birth family respond, and how did your daughter respond? Are you okay to talk about those things?
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So my daughter, I'll tell you what she said. She actually said, "Oh, Dad, I thought you was having an affair with a woman." Okay, no, this is good. So that was, my daughter is like a mini me, I think, really. You know, and she's not so mini anymore. You know, she's a grown woman now. So, you know, so that was one of the most beautiful moments of my life, really. I mean, you know, and she is, you know, the most beautiful moment of my life. It was a lot harder with my wife at the time, you know. My family were interesting, but, you know, my immediate friends were, oh, you know, it's fine. We kind of knew, you know. So there was a lot of that. Family was a little bit different. It was very, very awkward. Neither of my parents really wanted to be a part of the conversation. They didn't really want to know initially. And then we ended up having a very long conversation about it. And let's just say they're okay with it now, but some of their responses to conversations or something that they maybe have seen on TV are still slightly inappropriate, I think it's very, very difficult for, this is my view, very difficult for people to unlearn those behaviours. When you think, and I say this a lot when I talk about this subject, you know, there was an entire nation at the time that was taught that homosexuality was wrong, up to 1967, and then it was kind of allowed, but not really. And then there was a campaign of let's go out and arrest anyone that was, it was just the whole situation was awful. And I really believe here in the UK, certainly in London, and where I am now, it really feels like we're starting to turn that corner.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not for other parts of the community. I think for the trans community, and it's still difficult, I think, but certainly for us guys and the girls in the community, I think we've really turned a corner, and it's that much more. To a certain extent, I mean, I'm still seeing people being attacked in London, and so not so much, but I think there's a lot more support and a lot more. It kind of feels that a little bit more comfortable. I think it's elsewhere in the world. I'm not going to say, but somewhere over the pond, potentially, there are parts of the world that are just seem to be regressing, which is concerning. I think really concerning. Yeah,
and we should also be aware that there are parts of the world where being gay, lesbianism is invisible, as it always has been, right?
Yeah.
But being a gay male in some parts of the world will lead to being executed, and people should be aware of that. That's still it's bonkers stuff. It's also it's one of the things I feel very strongly. It's like we won the war because of a gay man who was then subsequently placed upon medication to stop him being gay. I mean, it's just insane stuff, isn't it? That all of this gross abuse that has taken place. And my profession has been part of that. It's within living memory that being gay is no longer a pathology within the directories of mental health, etc. So we should all remember that this stuff is not won. It needs to be defended. I'm with you about this sort of trans stuff. I'm fed up of little kids killing themselves when they reach puberty because they feel wrong in their bodies and people hate them.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
fed up of it. I'm really,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
here. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to make this really clear. If people think that the sign on a toilet is more important than whether or not a child kills themselves because they feel wrong in their bodies, there's something wrong with you if you think that that's an important issue, and that if you miss the point that much, it's really outrageous that anybody could miss the point that much. I just want to make that statement really clear, really clear. Whatever happens in terms of treatments for body dysmorphia, etc., there's important clinical conversations to be had. But if you are so caught up in yourself that you think fighting about the sign on the toilet is more important than a child killing themselves because they feel wrong about themselves, and there's something wrong with you, quite frankly.
Just just stop it. We can't keep moving on to different segments of society and using the different is difficult. I don't like it, so let's pick on them this decade. I mean,
absolutely.
To coin a cliche, why can't we all get along? And I know I don't. I mean, I think there's a bigger conversation, and maybe a conversation for another day.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think it is connected, and it's really important that people understand that. And there is, in this sense as well, because I think the media represents a certain pork chop version.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Which is,
yeah, I agree completely. I really
just as like, it's not this generation of men that are you and I, and they're the pork chops that they're putting as media gobs are the same age as me. In fact, I've been on the telly with them and shut them down.
Yeah, good.
So I grew up, I went to school in the 70s when the first wave of feminism happened. As far as I'm concerned, it improved my life vastly in comparison to my father's life. Opened up so many choices for me that are absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Can I have the fourth and fifth wave, please, as soon as possible?
Absolutely. Oh, I mean,
you know what I mean? It's like I can't be asked to do all the fighting.
Yeah.
Get on with it. And I have to say, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think young people these days are extraordinary.
They really are. And I'm loving the strength of conviction that the younger generations have now. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And again, not everywhere. I travel a lot with work, and and also for leisure as well. And I think you don't always see it, and I hope it spreads globally. I really do, because I think that's really important. But the strength of conviction in the younger generations now is just fantastic to view. I only wish, there is one thing that I'm going to add to this, Noel, and this is kind of like a bit of a caveat. I only wish that discrimination inside the LGBTQI plus community was kind of quashed a little bit, because that
led to trans stuff.
No, I think actually there is a lot of ageism. There's a lot of shaming, and that took me down a path. I mean, bearing in mind I came out when I was 44.
Yeah, right.
I went on a ridiculous diet. Really, I lost tons of weight, too much, too quickly. Didn't look great on it, right? But I thought that I needed to be thin. So, I did everything that I thought I needed to do. And then I went out into Soho to try and get my, get my groove on, and, start dating. And I had the worst time. I really did. I was actually called out for being old in a pub and a club on two different occasions. So I think it's and that's going to happen. I think that kind of happens anywhere. I think even if you're even outside of our community, the ageism and the body shaming and the and I have worked on my own dysmorphia. So
exactly.
it's is tricky. I think if we could work on that, please, if anyone thinks, that would be great.
Great, good. Let's come back a little bit. And how did you get into this work around not just barbering, but men's and if you like, working with people in terms of their cosmetic needs, etc. Was that a natural progression for you? Is it sort of
Listen, someone who is super conscious of how they look, it's an interesting choice to make, right? So
right.
I started off 30 years ago working in a well-known department store as an agency person, and
or something like that.
Well, I mean, you know, it's a corner shop in Knightsbridge, so
They're doing really good fish finger sandwich there.
You know, I think they actually might.
No, they do. I've eaten it. It's a great,
the
best fish finger sandwich in London. It's well worth it. That restaurant on the top floor is great.
It is great.
It's great. It's the best.
I've been back actually since because we weren't allowed as employees, obviously, to partake. We had our own really nice staff restaurant there actually.
Right.
Superb. So I started off in that store. Not going to name it, but in that store, and then I got the bug. Like I'd worked in quite a few departments. I worked in fine jewellery, in luxury pens. I mean, who knew there was a luxury pen department, right? But so I kind of worked my way around, and then one day I got a call, and you know,
here you go. Here's a luxury pen for you.
I love a Bic.
It's the best design. It's the most successful designed industrial product on the planet, oddly enough.
So anyway, listen, I had to take those pens out with white cotton gloves. That's how expensive they were. So anyway, I digress. So then, you know, one day I had an assignment and I was working in cosmetics. I'd never touched a woman's face before. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. I'd never with makeup or skincare or anything.
I don't generally go around touching women's faces unless I'm invited. So it doesn't sound weird. It sounds pretty reasonable.
Let's just make it clear. Neither of us probably go around touching anyone's faces, you know, that we don't know. So I think that's probably, we'll make that one subject quite clear. but do you know, I had one of the best work days of my life on that day that I got sent to this cosmetic counter. It was fantastic. I told everyone how beautiful they looked. Even if they were a little bit off the beauty scale, but I really did, and I had a great time. I can talk, probably getting that now, and I earn a fair bit of cash from it as well. Right. You know, some of us are a little bit driven in the, you know, in building our careers and building up the confidence. So I kind of got into it that way, and then I then ended up working for a luxury boutique kind of multi-branded retailer for about 11 years, and then a hair care brand, really, and a beautiful naturally based hair care brand from the US that is reasonably big here, and then a French skincare house, became general manager, then moved on to a couple of other bits and pieces. So, and then I ended up, I think, 2.5 years ago, I was working with an aesthetics brand from the US. So looks and everything became, you know, they were really uppermost in the aesthetics world. But I missed hair care, and this role came up, and I went and had a chat, and here I am back in hair care, and more importantly in barbering, which a lot of people might find is a bit of a closed boys club and a bit, you know, a bit macho. But do you know what? It actually really isn't. It's the most comfortable I have been in my career. Particularly, we're 40 something barbers, right? You know, each and every one of those barbers is a beautiful person. Absolutely beautiful.
It's my experience of when I go to barber shops, like where I live in London, we got a lot of Turkish barbers. Absolutely amazing experience and feeling. Sort of a hot towel, get my hair done. I might get a mask done. I'll get a shave. etc. It's a real treat for myself.
Yeah.
You know? It's
Yeah.
it's actually part of the sort of personal grooming stuff. It's part of my looking after myself regime, not just physically, but emotionally.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because that's one of the reasons that I was drawn to the brand. First and foremost, I was a client before, and I was also a purchaser of the products as well. So I was already sold anyway. But that time you have in that chair, or even when if you go and see your spa, I still have facial treatments now. So
Yeah.
if I go and see my facial specialist, that time, not only in that situation where then, if I'm honest with you, I'm pouring my heart out pretty much most of the time. I still now I see a therapist. I regularly see a therapist, because there is still so much that I'm exploring, right?
Yeah.
Just my past and everything else. So but that time when I'm in that chair or lying on that bed and I'm having my treatment, is really, really important. And I think sometimes I actually pour out more than I do when I'm with my therapist.
Yeah. Well, it's a well-known phenomenon about men that often, if you're involved in an activity that distracts you, you will then talk. Just simply saying talk to me doesn't really work, but in a comfortable activity that you feel safe, that's when men tend to open up, to be honest.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's not often talked about, and I think a lot of guys are uncomfortable with talking about it in this way. But this self-care, this pampering stuff, like women really get it. But there are certain cultures, and I bring up the Turkish culture that I live with, because I live in Stoke Newington in Hackney in London.
Yeah.
Strong Turkish Kurdish community. There, the guys are really comfortable. They've held on to this males supporting males, giving each other barbering, massages. We've got a Turkish hammam where we can go. I go regularly. I'll spend 2 hours there in the steam rooms, being washed down, having a massage, all done by men, helping men. Beautiful. It's absolutely wonderful experience.
There's something about that connectivity as well that I think I always, whenever I'm talking about what we do, and this goes across all of the industries within personal care and service, it is that it's almost like it takes me back to when my mum used to wash my face, or used to wash my hair.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah,
that's that connection.
It does. It does.
Feels, I mean, I didn't feel great whenever my mum used to wash my hair, because it was horrendous, but you instantly feel there's that connection, and it feels familiar, and you feel comforted in some way, and then when the conversation starts flowing, that's then when sometimes you can actually think, oh wow, I've told not a complete stranger, but I've told someone that I see for 6 weeks, and hopefully they'll forget that next time. I have to say, our guys, our barbers and girls, sorry, I do apologize, ladies, for that. Our team are very, very good at remembering and recalling some of those things that they discuss, and they won't come right out and say, how was the horrendous thing that happened to you last time you were here? But they'll say, how are things going? You mentioned last time this happened or that happened, so.
But also, I think there is that thing, and certainly this is my experience. When I find a place I'm comfortable with, I keep going back, because basically because I don't like having to explain what I like over and over again. So it's like when I get my hair cut, I want to cut in a particular way. I want the scissors. I don't want a machine. I don't. Do you know what I mean? It's like. And so the guys that I go to, they know me. And we do ongoing conversations, and we talk about going to the gym, we talk about various things. And we have gotten to know each other over time. And when I go there, and I'm guessing this happens in your shops, they're like, oh, hi, how you doing? You're welcome back. And because they do recognize me. And I like that. I like feeling welcomed in that way. And what you're describing is very familiar to me, in the sense of people are not going to be intrusive, but they're going to know you and hold a bit of your story, and will notice, I guess, which is more to the point, when you've shifted and changed, if something has gone awry.
Yeah, you listen. Let me tell you, one of the early experiences in a Murdock, one of our Murdock stores before I joined, I was kind of having a bit of a moment, and I was quiet. And by the way, if anyone wants to go into one of our stores and wants a quiet service, they only have to say, I'd rather talk. Is that okay? Is the only phrase you will need. I mean, so long as they know what they're going to be doing. But that, and honestly, the guys will absolutely shut up and be silent for you if that's what you need. So I was having a quiet time, and the barber that was cutting my hair at the time, said to me, "Is everything all right? You're a bit quieter than normal, and I then had a conversation, and at the end of that, I wasn't quiet anymore, and I felt relief from that conversation.
Yeah.
And I wasn't seeing a professional, what we would call a professional therapist. I was talking to my barber, and that is what is so important, for me to really, really work on and tell the world this is what we do at Murdock. Yes, it is about offering that service, but we're here as well to have some of those conversations if you want to. We don't offer we're not offering a professional therapy service, so please don't come expecting that. We are a wonderful bunch of folk. Sometimes the barbershops can, certainly to the untrained eye, or maybe someone who hasn't been to one of our stores before, can be a little bit daunting when you first walk in. It'll be for about no more than 2 seconds, let me tell you.
And you'll feel comfortable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's also, I mean, we should sort of maybe talk about what is and is not involved in mental health first aid, so that people have a clear idea of it. So could you just walk me through what it is? What is mental health first aid?
Mental health first aid is really, well, it's an extension of first aid, right? So, but it's about, we are trained to notice the amber, I'm going to call them amber flags. I don't necessarily want to call them red flags. We do recognise red flags as well. So if we think there is a real issue, we can ask them if they really do need help now. Yeah. So that's at the extreme. At the other end, it's about figuring out if they, first and foremost, if the conversation leads us down a route where any of our team start to identify, from what we've been trained, start to identify that there may be an issue, and this person maybe does want to spend time talking to a professional that is trained in having these conversations, we would then signpost them to whichever of the services are local to them at the, and the national services. So one of the first we would always go to is, let's try the Samaritans. If not, we'll look, we can spend, a little bit of time maybe looking for you. The nearest local service is here, or over there, or wherever. Unfortunately, because of the cuts, the NHS services are few and far between, and your GP now does a lot of online stuff, which I don't know is really, I don't know, I don't think that's really helping, to be honest with you. And I promised we wouldn't go down the political NHS cuts route. I mean, I think me and you both know where we are with that. So some of the national services, we also linked with a charity called Andy's Man's Club.
Oh, I know Andy's Man's Club.
Yeah. There you go.
They're awesome. They've been on this. I love them to bits.
Yeah. And we hopefully will be linking with another charity. I'm absolutely in love with this idea. You might be actually. It's called Mind Over Mountains, and it's a walking. It's a mental health.
Oh, super! Yeah. Brilliant.
I just think it's the best idea. Yeah. So we're kind of looking at that right now. See if I really want us to get involved as much as we can on this journey, in particular when, unfortunately, the health services are being cut. So yeah, and helping the charities as well, because the charities are, they're overloaded with requests for help and support, and they're massively underfunded, as you probably know.
Yeah, I mean, it's the destruction of civil society organisations, charities, is well recorded in this country against worldwide advice. So the World Health Organization say CSOs determine the mental health of a nation.
Yeah.
And the destruction of those CSOs, civil society organizations, charities,
Yeah.
extraordinary in the UK.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
absolute, it's been a retreat to Moscow. Like, do you know the story of the retreat to Moscow?
No, I do not.
Okay, so Napoleon went into Russia. He was the biggest general, and the Russian forces just pulled back and pulled back, scorched earth.
Yeah.
He overextended his lines in Moscow. They burnt down Moscow when he was there and all that sort of stuff. So it's the metaphor is for scorched earth. There's been a scorched earth in the UK around services, not just in the NHS, but also in all the voluntary and community sector as well. Has been decimated, absolutely decimated.
Really? Yeah.
So it's really important that people understand this, not to make a party political point, but to get real people with what are the priorities in the UK at the moment. To get real, because what we know about modern psychological therapies is that they give you tools and resources to manage better. That's the truth. So people have an old-fashioned view of psychotherapy as being, lie down, tell me about your mum and dad.
Yeah.
As opposed to modern psychological therapies is what's going on? All right, try this, that might help. Try this, try that. Here's your tools, here's your resources. Go on, get on with that, give that a go, change your lifestyle like that. That's gone. Without that support, things get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then post-pandemic, things have got worse. So I think it is important to make these points because there is a sort of really strange view that, and I hear it again and again, that in the past, people didn't have psychological distress. They just got on with it. No, they didn't. What happened in the past was huge violence, huge levels of suicide, massive drinking, massive domestic violence, and we're seeing all those indicators increasing again already at the moment. So a massive increase in domestic violence, huge increase. We've just seen recently the underage drinking by girls start to go up again. After it had dropped 20% between 2015, we've been having some fantastic success at stopping underage drinking. This year, started to go up again. So every single indication at the moment is that we're getting this wrong. And it's really important people understand that.
We are, and we're we've probably become a nation of self-medicators, and that just has to stop.
Bad news. Bad news.
Really, really does.
So tell me a bit about, because sometimes people have this worry about this sort of signposting stuff and just being emotionally aware and psychologically aware that the sort of can of worms metaphor is often what people come up with. Is that something that's been happening? Have you suddenly found yourself swamped by loads of people with needs, or is it well contained?
No, not to be honest with you. We haven't really shouted it from the rooftops. It's interesting. I think we worked with Calm just before COVID. Some changes happened in the business, and kind of, I'm not quite certain. I mean, I've been in the business 2 years, so I'm a post-COVID CEO. So something happened with that, but we were kind of really talking about it a little bit then. Not a lot, to be honest with you. And for me, as you can probably tell, it's so important that it's a part of our DNA, of our pillars.
Does it worry you? I mean, as a person, does it worry you, those types of things?
It actually doesn't, to be honest with you. I mean, and this also, by the way, isn't new. I think we have been offering uncertified mental health first aid for absolutely decades.
I would agree.
But actually, we really wanted to look at this, take a serious view of it. I think I can honestly say every person in the team, front of house, back of house, in the office, the people that are involved in the development of the brand, we have all 100% been affected or touched by mental health in some way with a family member, either directly, indirectly, or whatever, right? So we know it, we can see it, we understand it, and we take it very, very seriously. Now,
tell you what's different about your approach. It's really interesting because there are plenty of corporates now that will have mental health first aid approaches for staff linked into HR processes, but you're not doing that. What's interesting for me, and I'll tell you why I'm interested in, I'll explain the backstory here. Obviously you'll be doing that for your staff anyway, because you're doing it. And you'll have HR processes and EAP and all that sort of stuff. But you're doing this for the public, as it were.
Yeah.
What's interesting for me is because I sort of I sat on one of those boards once, giving out prizes for employers who did good work in sort of mental health stuff. It's there were a number of organisations that stuck out. One of them that stuck out, which was really interesting, it was really interesting, the backlash. It was Virgin Trains. I thought they were brilliant, but everybody hated Branson and Virgin, so they wouldn't give him a prize because of him. Which is like, I just thought, class, absolute class. But I liked their project, and it was a passenger-facing project. A very simple one about suicide prevention. As you know, one of the ways that people commit suicide is jumping under trains. So train companies have been for some time thinking about this and how they do deal with that issue. And they had a very simple thing, which was a painted line which people could stand on if they were struggling.
That is beautiful.
Isn't that brilliant?
That is so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
On every single platform that they serviced, they had a mental health crisis painted line that you could stand on. Like all those lines on the floor now in stations. There's the toilets, follow that line for the toilet, follow that one. And this one was for somebody would come and chat to you, say, how you doing, mate?
Yeah. And
absolute genius.
I bet, but do you know what's interesting? I bet it's not there anymore.
Well, probably not, but I think these things come and go, and it's great that they happen. I'm interested. We're running out of time. I told you time to run out because it always does. But I'm interested in why, because it's quite courageous to do a public-facing service like this. I know it loads in the business world in terms of mental health first aid, and go to any conference, there's about 300 million companies that provide mental health first aid training. And as a mental health professional, I get a little bit irritated, but there you go. That's my stuff. All right, I'll hold that. But how did you, no, I don't know how your board, did your board just jump in and say, yeah, go on, Graham, do that? Or did they just go, what is wrong with you?
No, you know what? It's become a part of our DNA, and if I'm honest with you, the board. This is really interesting. The board have their view. I have mine.
Right.
And actually, I'm very fortunate in that we have an incredibly switched on board who are. We use the hashtag more than a barber, right? So let me tell you, you've met me now, right? And hopefully, some of the viewers will hear this. I'm more than a CEO, right? So I will always push back if there is something that I really feel strongly about. Really, here, not here, right? And by the way, this doesn't involve revenue. This isn't revenue producing at all.
No, absolutely not.
This is what we absolutely must provide as a service to anyone who wants to come in for a product or a haircut or a beard trim or whatever it is that we're doing on that particular client. So I would always push back. But we're also more than a board, I'll be honest with you. So we're very, very focused on health and well-being. And that is where that's the direction of the brand. That's where we're headed and where we've always been going. And that's super important. Yeah.
And self-care in terms of mental health, in the health sense, as opposed to mental health in the illness sense.
Yeah.
Self-care is a really important thing, and if people
Yeah.
aren't involved in nurturing themselves in that way, really have to get on with doing it,
Yeah.
and bringing it into your life. We have run out of time, so tell me the company name, the website, so people can find it.
Of course, it's Murdock London, and you can visit us at murdocklondon.com.
Great. And have you got sort of social media profiles, not just you individually, but the company that
We
is
do, yeah. Yeah, you can find us. I think this is really bad. I think it's at Murdock London. I think.
Okay.
But I mean, if you
by the time
it.
this goes out, my PR team will have contacted yours. We'll have got all those details. They'll be underneath the video, so don't worry about it.
Amazing.
And so people can follow you. What about you yourself, Graham? Individually, do you have a profile that you want to share?
I actually have a LinkedIn profile. I mean, people can follow me on Instagram. It's strange and interesting, but you're more than welcome to.
Yeah.
I will be posting a link to this podcast on my own, and my Instagram is Je suis Graham. It's je_suis and then Graham.
Right. I'll make sure there's a link to that as well.
Thank
And
you.
you're on LinkedIn, yeah?
I am on LinkedIn as well. Yes, I am LinkedIn as Graham Clarke, CEO Murdock London. Yeah.
Right. So on my list of things to do is to get down to one of your barber shops, and because my hair needs to be done, so I'm going to get in there and
I
get
didn't like to say no, actually.
Bog off.
Listen, come down and we'll make sure you have a nice sharp trim with no machines.
No bloody machines, only scissors, mate. I'm an old-fashioned boy.
Indeed,
It's been awesome to have you on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
We're going to keep this conversation going because I think I genuinely 100% think this is extraordinary work that you're doing. Meeting people, the public, where they are, particularly guys, meeting guys where they are, and providing fantastic support. And I can't tell you how fantastic I think it is. It's just a really... It's just super, absolutely superb work. Love it to bits. You stay there, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this. Do get down to that barber shop and go and get your hair sorted out, like mine needs to be, as I've just now been told. But there you go. He can get lost, can't he? Great to have Graham on, and I'll see you all at the next show. And in between, have a good life. And bye bye for now, everybody.